Hey, Jason. What's going on, man?
Good. You not sleeping today?
Yeah, no, actually I was, but that's all right.
Oh, well, I'm sorry if I awoke you.
Oh, no worries. No, that's no biggie. I was up early and had to do a bunch of stuff and just took a little nap here, so...
Are you currently on tour?
Well, I'm in Cleveland at the moment doing some stuff for one of my bands called Pitch Black Forecast. Yeah.
So you're recording?
Played a show a couple of nights ago, and now we're just tracking some of our newer stuff.
You had a super career as a death metal drummer, you know, in bands like Death, later joined Testament and Dethklok group for the Metal Apocalypse television show. How did it all start, all this stuff?
Well, when I was super young, I decided that I wanted to become a rock and roll drummer, and so that was kind of, before the era of, like, say, thrash metal or anything, and when, I just started honing my chops, and then when I was 16 or so, I joined Dark Angel, and they had their first album was going to be coming out in a few months or whatever, and so I joined those guys and just, been jamming ever since, I was with Dark Angel for about 8 years, and at the same time I picked up guitar and just started writing a bunch of riffs, so I ended up writing, tons of Dark Angel's music and all the lyrics there towards the end and all that sort of stuff. And after Dark Angel disbanded, I basically got a call from Chuck saying, "Hey man, I'm looking for a drummer. If you're interested, come on out.
Wow,
let's do this." So
you're the replacement for Sean Reinhardt, which was also a crazy drummer.
That's right.
And
yeah, he was great.
Yeah, he did great stuff too in the Human album. But you took it another step in individual top patterns. How did you guys get to write the material? Was it like already written and organized, or did you come in and give your ideas?
Well, yeah, kind of. Chuck sent me a riff tape, and it was really adorable because he didn't even have a 4-track at the time. So what he had done is he took two boom boxes, two ghetto blasters, and he recorded one track into one boom box, and then he would push play on that and then record the second guitar track into the second boom box. So that's how we'd get some harmonies and stuff. And when it was a pretty rudimentary riff tape. You could hear the kind of the chops and the pauses where he'd take a song halfway through, sort of thing. And one thing I noticed was all the riffs were being played, like, I never know how to explain it on guitar, high up on the neck. They were all really high and tinny sounding. And, I just learned all the riffs or whatever. And then when I got to Chuck's place, we both sat with guitars, because I figured I'll probably learn how to play the riffs. I'll learn how to play the drums to this way better. I had a bunch of beats in my head, but I figured I'd learn how to play them a little better if I learned them on guitar as well. And so I told Chuck on most of the songs, because everything was so high. I was like, "Hey Chuck, why don't we try playing some of these riffs down here, and get some chunk into them?" And he was like, "Wow, I never even thought of that. Cool idea, wicked." So, that's where some of the songs, I just transposed them down to where you got some heavy stuff. About the only thing that was low on the little riff tape he sent was like the riff to The Philosopher.
Right.
Boom, 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 that one. And, and everything else was just way up in the stratosphere of, it played in A sort of thing,
And that's true what you're saying.
Yeah, a lot of stuff was pretty high. And, like Symbolic kind of evolved into that high, a lot of high riffs there too. But, so we had about 3 weeks to put it all together and jam it and stuff. So, we got all the songs down in about 3 days or whatever, and just kept jamming them. And then we went to the studio and tracked the drums, and I moved over to England after that.
How long did it take you to record the drum tracks on that?
I think like 3 days or something like that.
3 days. That's an incredible drumming album.
2-3 days.
is
nice.
high up there in drum world. You know, the double bass drum you're delivering in that album is incredible.
Oh, cool. Thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate it.
I'm sure you hear that a lot. And is there any overdubs in the double kick drum, or is that all you doing that?
No, that's pretty much me. It was kind of right before the era of all that pro tooling and all that stuff. So that is me. I can't think of any spots where we even, I always hear the mistakes in like that record and individual, and symbolic and stuff like that. I hear the mistakes on those more than the wow, that's awesome part. I cringe at some of the stuff on a couple of parts on those records where I'm just like, damn, I wish I didn't play that beat right there. I wish I'd played something different.
But sometimes the mistakes end up being the good part.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But like for instance on Overactive Imagination, it does a lot of that just kind of staggered kick drum, kind of broken up kick patterns, and I wished I could have just played them all the way through, just hauling 30-second notes through the entire part, but I couldn't. So that's why I would always make up these little staggered little things, like on Death is Certain, Life is Not from Dark Angel. I had some really crazy double bass patterns on it that a lot of guys, caught those patterns and were like, whoa, those are crazy. What the hell are you doing? It's like, well, I wished I could play, all the way through. I can't. So yeah, you just take a weakness, turn it into a strength, I guess.
I read that you started in 1983 with Slayer's Show No Mercy singing backup.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How do you end up singing backup? Because you're a roadie for Slayer?
Yeah, I was in the studio with them, just watching them record the record, because I knew all of them, and we were all pals and stuff. And I might have been doing lights for them at that time. I'm not sure. They were just like, Tom was just like, hey, dudes, you guys are cool. Why don't you come on down? Hang out and watch some of this album get recorded. And when they were going to do I just remember watching them do, Evil Has No Boundaries live, and it was always Jeff and Carrie just kind of going, evil! My words define evil! And, like two guys just kind of, evil! And I just happened to mention, hey, dudes, why don't you get a gang of dudes in there just going, evil! And Tom and Carrie were like, hey, cool idea. Might as well be now. Now's the time for that. So gathered up like 8 dudes and went in the vocal booth, and all of us yelled evil. So it was I just tossed it out there as an idea, and they were like, let's do it now. Hey, we got a bunch of dudes around here. Let's do it. So that's how that kind of worked.
How long you stay with Slayer?
Well, it was really just, I'd go to their gigs. They needed a light guy. I was in high school.
Basically freebie
stuff.
I
would bid all their gigs anyway.
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, like freebie stuff, clubs and stuff?
Yeah, all the tiny little clubs here in L.A., or over in L.A., I guess. And, because, nobody knew who they were, and they were, glam was fucking huge at the time, and I was so into Slayer just because I was like, nobody's ever gonna like these guys because they're way too fucking heavy,
Right.
They're heavier than Venom, they're heavier than Motorhead, they're heavier than Metallica, and they were heavier than Dark Angel at the time. I saw Dark Angel a bunch, and and all that shit. So yeah, they play in front of like 30 people, and I guess a lot of those shows that they used to play have come out on one of their. They put out some DVD package a few years ago that a lot of those shows are on there, and you see how many people are there. And I'm probably doing lights on a bunch of that early stuff, but yeah, I went on the road with them in the summer of '84, and I was a horrible roadie, I was a horrible tech. I was a white guy, I didn't know I was supposed to load gear and do all that other stuff. But all that stuff. But I used to do Dave's sound checks for him. Dave would walk out in the house and, just say, Dave, go check out how your drums sound. He's like, cool, man. I got somebody else here playing drums. Wicked. So I, play songs with him in sound check and stuff. That's how I learned how to play Dark Angel songs, because that seemed to be all they wanted to do in sound check, was just play a bunch of Dark Angel tunes. So that's how I ended up joining Dark Angel later, because I already knew their songs, because I jammed them a few times with Slayer. But
like Metallica in that year, did you get to see how they're doing? Like, were you in the same type of team?
I saw their very second show ever, and they were opening for Saxon in like March of 1982, I believe that was. And the only thing I thought about the show is that they were a terrible band, but I was like, hey, there's, on stage, there's the jerk that wouldn't make me an Iron Maiden shirt a few months earlier, because I was at a July 4th party in 1981, and I saw this dude walking around. It was a backyard party. Hyrax, what eventually turned into Hyrax, was playing the party. It was Caton. You're probably familiar with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Caton was playing with his old band Chaos, and I saw this dude walking around with an Iron Maiden shirt. I didn't know anybody who was even into Iron Maiden. I had 3 friends that I turned on to Iron Maiden. Those are the only people I knew who even knew what an Iron Maiden was. And then I see at this party, this guy walking around with a fucking Maiden shirt. And I walk up to him, I was like, dude, where did you get that shirt? And he's like, I made it. And I was like, oh my God, can I give you money to make me one? Would you make me one? And he's like, no, fuck off, kid. 'Cause I was like 13 or something like that. And he's like, fuck off. And I'm like, dude, I'm serious, man. I've never even met another human being who knows who Iron Maiden is. And here you are with a shirt. It was the first album cover in white on a black shirt, so it was just like, looked like, it was a black and white shirt. And, I just kept pestering him all night. And he finally just told me to fuck off, and then when I went to go see Saxon play, this band, Metallica, was opening for him, and, the guy doing the singing, I was like, that's the dude with the Iron Maiden shirt. Fuck that guy.
James Hetfield.
It turned out that was James Hetfield. So.
Wow. And he wasn't too nice guy for an Iron Maiden fan.
Well, he was pretty moody dude back then anyway, and I was this punk kid that was just, following him around this party all night. He probably just wanted to chill out and have a good time, and he got this little 13-year-old bastard bugging him, make me your shirt, So I don't blame him, but at the time I was like, nah, fuck you.
So I bet you were there to see Saxon then.
Yeah, totally.
And Lars
Ulrich
Ulrich
was terrible. They were horrible.
So you're saying that they weren't that good at that time in 1982?
No, not their first couple of shows. They had to get good a little while later, but they weren't good. I just remember Dave Mustaine did all the talking. Like their singer wouldn't even talk. It was like, be the other guy doing the talking. And, they had Ron McGovney in the band, and I later jammed in a band with him. But, it was pretty rough, I was like, wow, what, wasn't great sound. They just didn't sound all that great. But, whatever,
So I wonder how they really took off that, from a band that couldn't play to, they just probably practiced a lot.
Well, yeah, and then when they moved up to San Francisco, a few months later or whatever, that's, they got, they got Cliff in the band, that started, I think that's when they started really getting pretty decent, like, you've heard those old Hit the Lights, and they did the No Life, I don't even think they had the No Life Till Leather demo out at the time yet. So, I mean, they had one song on the Metal Massacre record, and, it wasn't very good. I was like, okay, that's rudimentary, but, it just sounded like a rock and roll band playing fast,
Did you ever met Venom?
Yeah, did a couple shows with them back in 85, back on their QG. What's that?
How are they as human beings?
Yeah, they were cool. I mean, we didn't really meet them then, like played a show with them, but, don't talk to Venom. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, and, met Kronos a few years later, really, and And yeah, he was cool. He was nice.
And when you got into Testament, how did that work out? Because the band was really not too big at that time, from what I remember.
No, they had gone away. Actually, when I got the call from Chuck Billy, I always wanted to work with Chuck Billy, and I wasn't the superest biggest Testament fan before that, and Chuck called me up and said, "Hey, we're breaking up the band. We got a new project called Dog-Faced Gods, and it's me and Eric and got another couple of dudes, and do you want to come up and check it out?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, that sounds cool." Like I've always wanted to work with him. He's like, "We're going to go heavier, whatever." And so I got up there, and it was supposed to be about a 6-week, rehearsal to record period. And it ended up taking about 9 months, and in that whole process, they turned back into Testament, and but they wrote some really cool songs, and I think the album came out really killer, and like made friends with those guys or whatever. But that was a pretty dark period in my life, just. There wasn't a lot of money floating around at all, and any sort of dough I had made with Death, I'd pretty much, I didn't make tons of money with Death, made enough to survive for, a good few months, and then, had to start finding a gig, and I had just recorded City with Strapping when I went up to go, I recorded that. 2 days later, I went up to start the Dog-Faced Gods rehearsals, and I was really stoked on City from Strapping. I thought we were really doing something super cool. And so I told those guys, "Hey, dudes, I'm in Strapping. I'll play with you guys, absolutely, but I'm in Strapping. We're going to turn this into a band, and it's going to be really cool." And I don't know if they ever listened to me say that, but I know I said that a whole bunch. And, when it was time to make the big announcement, here's the album out, Gene's in the band, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, dudes, I ain't in the band. I'll play with you guys as much as I can, but, I'm in Strapping, man. Strapping has a whole bunch of touring plans, and, 8 months later, when the album's coming out, and, I've been up in Canada doing stuff with Strapping, playing gigs, and we've got tours booked and all that. And, I was like, "Hey guys, I don't know if I could commit to any of these tours you're talking about because I'm already going to be on tour." So they got John Detty, he played for them earlier in their career, and he had just finished with Slayer. So I think they got him back, and, everything worked out fine. I mean, and then on the next record, of course, they got Dave, and Dave's killer and all that stuff. So I always thought the best drummer for Testament was John Tempesta. I mean, he's amazing for them. The drums on the Low album, so solid. And there was one song on the Demonic album, it's a song called New Eyes of Old, that was a leftover track from the Low session. And I just played John Tempesta's parts, and that was one of the most fun drum songs on the record, just because Johnny T is a killer drummer, just so solid, so rocking. And they re-recorded a bunch of their earlier stuff, I think, with Johnny T, and I still haven't heard it, but I'm sure it's killer on the drums.
You a big fan of Louis Clemente?
Not really.
No?
I was always into drummers that had some style, and just he was.
He reminds me of Lars Ulrich.
Yeah, just kind of, a good-looking dude that's there in the background, just kind of, keeping time. That's why Johnny T was killer. He was great for him. So, they had a lot of style when on the Low record. It was a killer album, and Paul Bostaff's doing great. I think their new album is killer, man. Their new album's fucking storming.
Very
so great work, Testament. Way to do it.
Yeah, and having back Alex Olnick in the group helps things too.
Yeah.
What are you doing right now for your tours and stuff? Or are you just recording?
Well, as of this year, let's see, I've been on the road pretty much since January, since just after the NAMM show. I went up to went up to Vancouver for 3 days, recorded an album with a band from Montreal called Fat Tooth, and that album's probably out by now. I guess it's not very heavy metal, but it's pretty rocking. And then right after that, I went down to the Bay Area and I did a month of jamming with Forbidden, and I did their reunion shows. They did like 5 reunion shows, and those were really killer. And then I went directly from that onto a tour with Zimmer's Hole, which is one of my latest projects. And then after that, I came down and wrote and recorded the next Meldrum drum tracks. And then when Michelle passed away, we decided to, carry on the band, at least for this album, finish this album. And so I've been, after, she passed away when I was in Australia doing some drum clinics, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm still not over it. She was my best friend. She was, we were in our very first band together when, I met her when I was on the road with Slayer on that little tour that I did with them, and we ended up being in our first band called War God together, and she was the one that kicked me out to go join Dark Angel. When I was like, when Dark Angel was looking at me to play drums for him, I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I want to stay. I like our band. And she's like, dude, Dark Angel is going to do some really cool stuff, and who knows what we're going to do? We're just this little band. Go. And so she, kicked me out of the nest, I guess, and so I've been playing with Meldrum for the past couple of years, and her death has been completely and absolutely, utterly devastating to me anyway, and all of us in the Meldrum family, and we're still in shock, and I'm a zombie right now. I'm a fucking zombie, and it hurts, and I haven't gotten over it, with, thank God we've had this album to throw ourselves into, and, that has actually given me some life. I just did the Dethklok tour directly after her death, and I wasn't even there for that. It was an amazing tour. It was awesome. The Dethklok tour was so killer. The band is doing really cool things here in the States, and just sold out tours and sold out shows. All the shows were sold out, and all the fans were so into it. And, the guys in the band are great dudes, and it just happened at the worst time in my entire life. So, I know the tour was great. I know it was awesome, but I kind of wasn't even there for it, if you know what I mean. So, and then 2 days after that tour finished, I jumped in the car. I grabbed our now guitarist Laura, and drove up to Vancouver, and we started recording the guitars for the album. And during the entire Dethklok tour, our new vocalist Michelle Madden, I sent her to Vancouver because Michelle Meldrum was. She was actually, we were recording all the stuff at her house, with her Pro Tools, and she was the person actually, hitting the record button. And when she passed away, we didn't have anybody to do that. So, I live in Vancouver, and I've got my producer up there. His name's Chicken. I sent Michelle up to Chicken, and we just. Yeah, it's the strangest way to record an album. It got announced, like on Blabbermouth and stuff like that the band is putting the finishing touches on the album. It's like, no, we're not. We recorded drums for it. That was it. That's all we had. And Michelle had some rudimentary scratch guitar tracks on there, and that we weren't putting the finishing touches on anything. We've carried on and created the album. Michelle and I wrote all the music, and now Michelle Madden, she and I wrote all the vocal lines. So the album is, we were going in a heavier direction. I know the album is, I don't know if you're familiar with any Meldrum music, but those who are will be probably surprised, shocked at the new material, because Michelle Meldrum was like yeah, fuck it, let's go heavier. Because I was always trying to I push all my bands, let's go heavier.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was like, yeah, you know, so we were kind of getting back to the thrash roots there just a little bit, you know, writing some really heavy stuff. I mean, because Meldrum beforehand was, you know, killer band, but, you know, not very brutal metal, and there are parts on this album that are, you know, kind of brutal, and, you know, especially from Meldrum. So I'm sure people that hear it, that are familiar with the old stuff, they'll either be shocked and surprised in a good way, or they'll fucking hate it. And I don't care, because all Michelle wanted to do, she was like, man, let's just put out the coolest album we can do, and that's what we are doing right now. So
when is this going to come out?
But sometime next year, you know, we're shooting for like February of 2009 or something like that. So we're still tracking it right now. I'm in Cleveland at the moment. I left my guitarist Laura up in Vancouver because I had some prior engagements here in Cleveland where I have a band out here called Pitch Black Forecast, and it's myself and Jason Popson from a band called Mushroom Head. And he used to sing for Mushroom Head, and, you know, it's a pretty hardcore project, you know, just more on the side of hardcore than, you know, blistering thrash metal or anything. You know, it's, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel with this band, but it's a fun project, and I really enjoy it. And I have a good time jamming with these guys, and, you know, I wish it could be under better circumstances. I wish my brain could be here, too, but right now this Meldrum project is pretty obsessive for me at the moment. So I've really thrown everything I've had into the Meldrum thing, you know, just creatively and mentally, and just with all the, I don't know, just devastation that occurred right before we started recording was, you know, just had me in a crazy headspace. You know, I'm definitely not myself these days. So, but the Meldrum album's coming out killer. And then I go on tour in the States with Zimmer's Hole, you know, starting in like 2 weeks or something like that. And then after that, Zimmer's Hole and Dethklok go down to Australia together, it's looking like. And then I think we go over to Europe and do some touring with Soilwork, I believe. I think that's what's next on the plan after that. And then we have some really cool touring plans for January and February of 2009. And I'm sure those will get announced real soon. And, you know, we're going out with one of the coolest bands on the planet, and that's pretty cool. That'll be very cool for Zimmer's Hole. That'll be awesome.
You're a very busy man.
Yeah, that's okay. It makes me happy, and, you know, sometimes people are like, dude, you know, take a vacation, and I'm like, well, this whole lifestyle I lead is a vacation, you know? Like, none of this is hard work. I play rock and roll for a living. I'm fine, you know? But, dude, you're going to burn yourself out. It's like, yeah, whatever, you know? Every year I tell myself, dude, you're going to take a week off somewhere this year. You know, you're going to travel somewhere. You're going to turn the phones off, and, you know, and it never happens, and I'm okay with that. It just... You know, just because if I'm devoting time to one project, chances are all the other projects are not getting taken care of, you know. Like, I've had this DVD that I've had completed for over a year, like a sort of a Gene instructional DVD. It's been done in the can. I just got to get the artwork right and then put it out, and just haven't had any time to do it, you know.
Wow.
But, which I'm not in a super hurry to get that thing out, so it's a priority, but it's not one of the front burner priorities. It's because I devote a lot of time on the DVD to one of my main projects, a band called Mechanism, and, you know, like, I play 5 songs from Mechanism, and you know, that album isn't even out yet, so I'm trying to wait until Mechanism decides what our plan is going to be. Are we going to try to shop ourselves? Are we going to try to get, you know, put it out ourselves? As soon as we figure out that plan, and that plan is in formation, that's when I'll release the DVD. I don't want to release the DVD, and then 2 years later the Mechanism album comes out. I'm trying to just keep those release dates as close together as possible. And so, like, a lot of people just been MySpace pestering me, dude, where's your DVD? You talked about it a year ago. What's going on with it? And it's like, it's coming out. It's done. Don't worry about it. You know, I'm not in a hurry to get it out. There's, you know, everybody else can put out DVDs too. That's fine. Mine is going to be what it is, and you know, I know a lot of people are going to, you know, dig it, and some people are going to hate it. You know, you probably learn a whole lot about off it. So,
oh yeah,
because it's packed full of knowledge. So, anyway, there you go. So, you know, I got my hands in millions of things. And,
I see that.
You know,
when you're making your biography.
Yeah, really.
Because with all the acts you're playing with, you could have a big book coming out too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, people talk to me about that. So, well, you never know. You know, I started writing a book in 1995 about when I was on tour with Death. I just started compiling all the really cool road stories that, you know, I'd seen and I'd been a part of, and, you know, my friends' bands' road stories and stuff like that. And I just, you know, then never got it done. You know, just
but you still got it.
Working on other things. And, you know, little pieces of it here and there. You know, I'm sure it's a lot, you know, shoved in a box somewhere. I've moved 20 times.
Hopefully you find it and do something with it. You know, I'm sure that'd be a great read. Deicide. Do you have any meetings with Deicide?
Oh yeah, totally.
How are those guys?
Like they were, you know, they're killers. You know, like back in the day, they were, you know, they when I first met them, they're like, dude, we're huge Dark Angel fans. We pretty much based all our riffs on Dark Angel, and you know, I was like, wow, cool, awesome. You know, I can hear it. You know, and they're cool guys. You know, I've always dug those dudes. I think you know, the last album, Stench of Redemption, not the new one. I haven't heard the new one yet, but I'm sure it's fucking killer, because I thought Stench of Redemption was fucking amazing. I thought it was killer, man. I thought it was a really good step for them, because of course they could be doing the same album over and over and over, but you know, you got Jack Owen in the band, and that guy can write a mean riff too. So, you know, I don't know if Steve still writes all the stuff. I'm sure he does, but
so you knew that as the fact that he wrote the stuff in the past?
Yeah.
He still does.
He's their chief songwriter.
So
okay.
The Huffman brothers never wrote their material then.
No. But that's all right. The drummers always write the coolest metal.
Yeah.
You know, like, look at early Anthrax. I mean, that was Charlie writing all that shit. SOD, I think a lot of that was Charlie too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And you know, I ended up writing all the stuff for Dark Angel after a while. You know, or you know, 80% of it, and you know, like, lots of drummers write the cool stuff. I tell you. You know,
the drummers are the best.
I think Thomas from Meshuggah has a big hand in their writing. So.
Yeah, Lars Ulrich, Metallica.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Humming riffs to James, you know.
Yep.
Can't play guitar, but he'll hum the riffs.
Yep.
All that shit, so.
All right, Gene. We're going to let you go.
All right, Jason.
And you have a good day.
Man.
And
you too.
You don't work too hard.
I appreciate it.
You got to take it easy.
I'll try.
All right, Gene. I'll talk to you later.
All right, Jason. Take care, man. Thanks for the interview.
You're welcome. Bye.
We'll see you.